Hello, my name is Cassandra COF, and today, backtrack. As a minority, I can count it with one hand the amount of teachers of like multicultural backgrounds I've had in my 12 years of my education. So the topic I will be talking about today is how the lack of teachers of color affect the educational my main claim today is that the lack of teachers of multicultural background negatively affect the education of minority students. So according to an article by the New York Times, minority students have become the majority in public schools, and a lot of these schools only hold teachers of like white teachers, so statistics show that 80% of teachers today across the country are white, whereas almost half of the students enrolled in schools are of minority backgrounds. So here is the evidence of my claim. The lack of teachers of color represent a lack of communication between parents and teachers. So a lot of white teachers aren't connected with that cultural background of minorities. So many don't speak any other language but English, obviously because it's the U.S. But many don't speak other languages, so this makes it difficult for parents to communicate with teachers and therefore to learn about their kids' education. So this makes it difficult because parents play a big role in their students' education. Parents pay for college. Parents they serve as support and as a pillar for students. So if parents can't communicate with teachers, then this means that parents miss out on very important things, such as, like I know my parents don't speak English, and since most of my teachers don't speak Spanish, my parents really haven't been connected with my education, so they don't really know what's going on, and that's it affects me as a person. Secondly, a lack of diversity causes a deficit in multicultural awareness from teachers. So teachers fail to recognize the struggles of students, of colored students. They have this disconnect with the culture, and they don't understand minority students as much as teachers of color would. So teachers of color would help minorities look up to them as a role model, I want to say. So if you have that role model to look up to, then you have that that person you can look up to and be like, oh, I want to be like them when I grow up. Also, the amount of education, not academically, but more personally, that the teachers without this understanding of multicultural diversity can provide is very hindered. So they don't really have that knowledge of multicultural backgrounds, and the curricula could be very set towards like not white people, but you know, like the majority. So when minority students can identify with this information, they get very discouraged, or they don't know how to take it, and it results in a higher dropout rate than other students of like that belong to the majority. And lastly, adding on to that, students may feel disconnected from teachers who lack a shared of cultural beliefs. So having this disconnect causes a weak connection between instructor and student. So the instructor can't relate to the struggles that a minority face. And this causes a cycle to begin. So if minority students don't drop out and don't pursue higher education, then that means that there will be more Latino students or more African American students to become that minority in the teaching position.
And that's it. Okay. Our first Looney Tunes exit. You don't have to stand there when I make my comments. You can sit down. You feel like a target when you do that, and I don't want you to feel like that.
I'm pretty sure that she left, but her stuff was
Her
here.
stuff's here.
Yeah.
So
She'll
come back.
with somebody, and she was telling me to come back for her.
She'll either come back or she won't come back.
She was just really stressed out.
Well, there's nothing I can do about it now. Thank you. I know you're over there somewhere. Oh, there you are. Okay, Cassandra, let's start with the things that I thought were pretty good. I like your personal experience as an introduction to the topic. I think that's pretty solid. You got a little confused because you started to suggest, how is it affecting education? That's not really the proposition, that's a question. But you did get to your propositional statement, and it was actually pretty clearly identified, and so you're in solid shape there. There's not a preview in the speech, so I have no idea how this is going to develop. Now, you did have some distinct supporting points, or at least you labeled them as distinct supporting points. They weren't numerically signposted, but I could tell where there were secondary claims. The problem was a lot of the secondary claims sound very similar to each other. Like the first three, they all sound like they're kind of saying the same thing. And unless you have a distinct reason for having them in separate places, that's a little bit confusing. I thought the fourth one was a little bit more distinct, so you probably need to work on numerical signposting there and figuring out how those secondary points are going to be developed a little bit more. You've got a lot of explanation that you're doing in your speech, but you're not advancing your claim very much. To be honest, the closest you came to citing a source in your speech was studies say. And that's it. I didn't hear any reference to other sources. There wasn't any statistical information except that one thing about studies say. I don't doubt that statistic that you have at the beginning. 80% of the teachers are white and 50% of the student population is non-white, something like that. That I think is probably true, although we ought to get a source citation on it. What I think we do need to have more of is the material that talks about how students are not succeeding as a consequence of that. All of that is asserted. You suggest that students don't relate well to their teachers, the teachers don't connect with the parents, and the only example we have there, again, is your kind of personal example on that. And I think we need more than that. So this is bereft of the kind of evidential support that you need to have for a good argument. I think you kind of explained your concept pretty well, although, like I said, the first couple of 3 points seem to be repetitive. But making it a convincing argument and proving that point, That's where you're lacking. I thought you did a nice job presenting for the most part. You're looking at the audience. You seem to know what it is you're trying to say, and you're interested in it. Like I said, I thought that the attention device did a nice job on that, but we got to get more support into the argument there. All right, thank you. All right, we're going to go with Matthew Company next.